Back with the second of two 2019 college football team season preview and prediction videos. Today, we did the Syracuse Orange earlier today. You can check that video out if you haven't had a chance to see it yet. Up now, one of the most requested teams every single year. And to be honest, I really don't know why. It's not much of a surprise anymore, it seems like, for this team. But anyway, up right now from the SEC West, the Alabama Woe Tides. Hey, good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today, so thanks for watching. Really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year, and a lot of them are even watchable, and they're all entertaining. Give this video a thumbs up if you're an Alabama fan, or if you're just excited for the start of college football season, which we're 6 days away. How can you not be excited at this point? The off season really is over. We've got the week 0 games coming up next Saturday, the big one being Florida versus Miami. But anyway, today's video, an Alabama preview and prediction. Let's get started. Okay, there's not a lot of surprises when it comes to doing a preview or prediction of a team like Alabama, right? Whether you hate them or love them, everyone follows Alabama. They're on the top of the college football world for a better part of a decade. Now, have they won the national title every year? No, but in general, they have ran college football over the last 10 years. Clemson trying to have something to say about that here lately, winning 2 of the 3 last national titles. But if you're looking at a 10-year period, right now Alabama rules over that 10-year period. Clemson probably the best program right now. We'll see if Alabama can get back to the top this year. But anyway, what did they do last year? Well, they ran through the regular season, right, 12-0, never really got tested. A couple of games where you sort of scratched your head a little bit, but not that they were close in the end, really. LSU, people were sort of looking at that game. They won 29-0. The Arkansas game, I mean, they blew Arkansas out, but they gave up 31 points. And that was really the first time I think anyone looked at Alabama and went, maybe there's a crack in the armor there, right? Because Arkansas was a terrible team, gave up 31. Couple of other situations like that. Mississippi State game was close for a little while, particularly in the first half. So Alabama looked dominant the majority of the season last year, but there were a few issues, a few things that popped up during the season that if you were paying attention, or if you were watching this channel, made you go, maybe they're not unbeatable. You guys remember, but most of the year last year, everyone, including Alabama fans, a lot of the analysis type people on TV, were calling last year's Alabama team the greatest Alabama team of all time. And it may have been one of their best offenses of all time, but defensively they had some issues, and late in the season, offensively they had some issues too. But 12-0 in the regular season, right? Won the SEC championship over Georgia to go to 13-0. Won their first playoff game against Oklahoma fairly easily. Alabama jumped out to a huge lead in that game and sort of coasted for the last 2.5 quarters. I know Oklahoma scored some points in that game in the second half. The score sort of looked closer, I think, to what the game really was. Alabama handled that game without a problem. Clemson did the same against Notre Dame. They met in the national title game, and we all know what happened. Complete debacle, really, for Alabama. There's nothing I can say about the national title game that hasn't already been said. I mean, it was really an embarrassing performance for any team, especially a Nick Saban team. You're talking about a guy, Nick Saban, been at Alabama for what, 10, 11 years now, hasn't lost very many games at all, period. Has never lost a game at Alabama by more than 14 points. And they get absolutely blown out by Clemson 44-16 in a game that Alabama was actually winning in the second quarter. So nice choke job, Gumps, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, Alabama fans know all that. They've accepted it at this point. We've moved on to the next season. I'm not here to trash talk Alabama. Those are just the facts. We recap everyone's previous season. It's not my fault you got blown out 44-16. I have to mention it. If me mentioning that makes you think I'm trash talking, well, don't get blown out 44-16. Anyway, Saban, there again. When's this guy going to leave? No one knows. But he's back again. But a lot of turnover on the coaching staff. Now, this is not anything new to Alabama to lose coaches from year to year, particularly coordinators. But 7 new coaches in this year. Some left for better jobs. Some were sort of pushed out, forced out, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like I said, we'll talk about some of these numbers in a minute. We did not see the Alabama defense last year that we were used to see. There were two things about Alabama that stood out to me as being off last year: running the ball and defense. And I'll just tell you what I mean about that right now. But last year, okay, first in scoring, that's great, in the SEC, but 7th in rushing. I don't know how far you have to look back to find an Alabama team that finished 7th in rushing, but I'm guessing it would probably predate Nick Saban. They were known, of course, for a long time, the team that ran the ball and played great defense. I know college football has changed a lot over the last couple of years. You almost have to throw the ball more now. But 7th in rushing in the SEC, 42nd nationally at running the ball for an Alabama team. We haven't seen that in a while. But, of course, they were 2nd in the SEC in passing. So they weren't hurting for points or yards offensively. It was just a little bit different to see Alabama finish so low in the rushing totals. You look at defense, and it's sort of a similar story. 3rd in the SEC in scoring, you say, well, that's not that bad. And it's not that bad. But they've been 1st or 2nd in the SEC in scoring almost every single year that Saban's been there. So a little bit of a step back there. Still had a pretty good rushing defense, finishing 3rd in the SEC. But the passing defense slipped to 5th in the SEC, which was only good for 33rd nationally. And again, there are a lot of teams that would love to have the 33rd ranked passing defense. And I'm not here trying to convince you that Alabama's defense was terrible last year. Of course it wasn't. But compared to most of the other Alabama defenses that we've seen the last 10 years under Nick Saban, last year's was not at that level. It just wasn't. Again, that's not a knock or a trash talk on Alabama. Alabama fans agree. Listen to them talk. They want to see their team get back to the old Alabama in terms of defensive domination. All right, let's talk about their offense and their defense, who they lost, who's coming back. Tua Tagovailoa. He comes back. Obviously, he'll be a junior this year, first year starting last year. Broke all kinds of Alabama passing records, 3,900 yards, and he only played about half the game in a lot of games and about 3/4 in most of the other games. He's never started and finished a game in his career, ever, not one single time. He's either been pulled out because Alabama was winning by so much, or he was pulled out because Alabama was getting dominated. That happened in the SEC championship game. He did have a little ankle injury, and then he was yanked in the Clemson game too. And Georgia and Clemson both really made him look pretty bad. Other than that, Tua looked almost unstoppable at points last year. 3,900 yards, 43 touchdowns. I make a joke about Tua being the softest player in college football. I'm not going to make that joke here in this video, but I'm going to say this. If you're an Alabama fan and you're not concerned about the durability of Tua, then you really need to wake up. It is, I don't even really know the word to use. Weird, strange, unusual. I've never seen a guy be hurt as much as Tua. And in my mind, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Hurt people play, injured people don't. It just seemed like almost every single time Tua came off the field, whether it was after a touchdown or a punt or whatever, he was into the injury tent. And it became a running joke, the injury tent thing. But, and then he missed time. He had some sort of top secret surgery after the SEC championship game to supposedly fix an injury he had with his ankle. He wore a knee brace part of the year. But he was in and out of that injury tent. I honestly do not remember ever seeing a player stay hurt to the extent that Tua did. And I would be worried about that if I was an Alabama fan. Now, the last couple of years, I mean, Alabama has proven that it's not the worst thing in the world for them to decide to put a backup quarterback in the game, right? I'm not going to, I mean, we all know what happened there. But their backup situation this year, I think, not quite as, I don't think you're quite as comfortable with Alabama's backup situation if you're an Alabama fan this year as you have been maybe in years past. You got Mac Jones that has been there for a couple of years but hasn't got a ton of experience. He's gotten some experience. And then, of course, you have Tua Jr., Tua's little brother. He's there. I can't imagine, the hype around him is going to be unreal, I'm sure, because he's Tua's little brother. I can't imagine him being better than Tua, though. But again, we'll see. But the point is, I don't think you can have the confidence in Alabama's backup situation in 2019 that you had, especially last year in 2018 with Jalen Hurts sitting behind Tua. Tua has got to find a way to stay healthy. If I was an Alabama fan, I would be nervous as hell about the health of Tua. I really would. And I think if an Alabama fan is being honest, he would agree. Wide receiver situation, For my money, the best wide receiver group in all of America. Now, there are 4 or 5 teams that have absolutely elite wide receivers all over the field. Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State. You name 1 or 2 more if you want. I can't imagine. I don't think that any of them have a better group than Alabama. I think Alabama has the best wide receiver in all of college football in Jerry Jeudy. Won the, Blitnikoff Award last year, whatever it is, for the best wide receiver. He would start on any team, anywhere in America, period. After him, you've got Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. These are all guys that would start and get a ton of playing time on any team, anywhere in America. I don't care how loaded they are at the wide receiver position group. These are absolutely elite players. They're all 4 NFL wide receivers. For my money, the best group of wide receivers in America. Running back situation, a little shaky here. And this is another thing that's kind of weird to say about an Alabama running back situation. Again, I don't want to say that they struggled running the ball last year, but it almost looked more like they chose to get away from running the ball some. But they lose 2 of their best running backs from last year to the NFL. Well, that's nothing new. That happens a lot. But they lose Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs. They're gone off to the NFL. That leaves you with Najee Harris, who is a known commodity, and Brian Robinson Jr. Now, he got some work last year, but it was mostly in mop-up duty. Basically, when Jalen Hurts came in the game, when they were up by 30, that was when Brian Robinson would come in the game. So not a lot of meaningful experience in first halves against good teams and things like that for Brian Robinson. Not to say that he's not any good. Every running back Alabama signs is good. We haven't seen him do a whole lot, though. After that, you had Trey Sanders, and I think it would have been hard to keep Trey Sanders off the field this year. Trey Sanders is an absolute stud and an elite talent. He tore his ACL a couple of weeks ago. I absolutely hate that. You never want to see anybody get injured at any time, but to lose a guy that's that highly recruited, that in my mind is a position of need for Alabama. I like the 2 running backs you have, but Alabama, like Georgia, is a team that plays 2, 3, 4 running backs a game, so it does hurt, I think, a little bit, at least from a depth perspective, to lose Trey Sanders, and I think he is still going to be really, really good, but we're going to have to wait a year to see that. Georgia was in this same position last year with running back Zamir White, right? A couple of weeks before the season, all the hype in the world. People can't wait to see this guy play. He blows a knee 2 weeks before the season starts. You absolutely hate to see that. Zeus is back for us this season. You guys will have Trey Sanders back next year. I'll be looking forward to watching him play. He was a guy I wanted Georgia to get. I'm not complaining. It's not like we're hurting at the running back position, but he was one of the guys I was keeping an eye on. He'll be a stud. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a year to see it. Offensive line, Alex Leatherwood, probably, is he your best offensive lineman this year? Probably going to move back to his natural position at left tackle, right? Other than that, he should have a great year. You got lots of young players going to be playing this year on the offensive line, though, and you may have as many as, 2, 3 new starters, maybe. There's a battle going on for center right now. We'll see. Saban is notorious about not releasing information about who's starting. So if you believe the reports, there's a battle going on for the center job and both guard spots. I think it was that right? Yeah, both guards. So I think tackles. I think you know what you're going to have there. We'll see what you roll out onto the field week 1 at center and the 2 guard positions. But sort of a revamped offensive line this year. Now Alabama has never been hurting for elite NFL offensive linemen. They're not hurting for that now. But it is sort of a revamped and reshuffled offensive line. You got Leatherwood changing positions back to left tackle, a position that I think he's better at anyway. And then you got to fill in the center of that line with your center and your 2 guards. So we'll see. Defensive line. Quentin Williams gone. Mac Wilson gone. Deontay Thompson, is that his name? Gone. Again, Alabama, no stranger to losing elite players to the NFL. Juniors, seniors, whatever. But according to Nick Saban, you have a few depth issues on the defensive line. Again, whether you believe anything Nick Saban says or not is up to you. He's notoriously coy with the media. But Nick Saban has stated on multiple occasions that he is concerned about depth on defense and defensive line in particular. So, that's what he said. First time in a long time, really, you've been able to say that about the Alabama defensive line. You do have Raekwon Davis. He'll have a huge year. I mean, he's an absolute beast, right? After that, though, some young, unexperienced, but ultra-talented players. Again, Alabama has had the #1 recruiting class in, 8 of the last 9 years or something. They're not hurting for talent. So when you're talking about question marks on Alabama, the question marks are that they haven't played a whole lot, not that they may or may not be talented. Every player on Alabama's team is talented. Third-string guys are talented. I mean, we all know this by now. You shouldn't doubt a Nick Saban roster at this point. Middle linebacker, more concerns here, according to Nick Saban, and he's probably telling the truth here. You got Dylan Moses coming back. That's great. He's an elite middle linebacker. But, of course, we all remember 2 seasons ago, Alabama had a couple injuries at the linebacker position, and according to Alabama fan, cost them the Auburn game. So your backups matter. You don't really have any after Dylan Moses. Not any that have ever played. If anything happens to Dylan Moses, that could be an issue for Alabama's defense. You don't have anybody behind him with any real-time game experience, nothing meaningful anyway. You just don't. Now, I'm going to say this before I say anything else about the linebackers. I think Alabama's starting linebackers are the best in the SEC. I would compare Alabama's starting linebackers to Florida's defensive backfield. Florida probably has the best starting defensive backfield in the SEC. But they're 1 or 2 injuries away from having a middle-of-the-road defensive backfield because they have some issues at depth in the defensive backfield at Florida. The same can be said, I think, about Alabama's linebacker situation. And again, we saw that play out. You don't have to go way far back in time. 2017, we saw that play out when Alabama got absolutely brutalized injury-wise at the linebacker position towards the end of the year, and it really hurt them. So Dylan Moses has got to find a way to stay healthy. Plenty of talent behind him, but again, sort of like on your defensive line, it's just unproven and hasn't played a lot yet. Outside linebacker, you get some good news here with Terrell Lewis, right? This guy was, I think, slated to start last year and blew his knee out in the summer. Goes through the rehab and the surgery and all that. Has a setback in the spring, which really scared Alabama fans. But it looks like he is okay. He's been practicing, from everything I can tell, full speed this fall, participating 100%, even in the scrimmages that they've had in live action scrimmages, full pads, contact, all that. So he should be good to go at one of your outside linebacker spots. And, of course, on the other side, you have Anthony Jennings, who may be the best linebacker in America or one of them. He's top 5 for sure. He's an absolute beast. I'd love to have Anthony Jennings. I mean, who wouldn't? DBs, Athlon ranks your linebacker group, I think, first in the SEC. And I tend to agree. They rank your defensive backfield, I think, 3rd. And that might be too low. I really like Alabama's defensive backfield this year. I know they caught some heat last year because they gave up some passing yards in certain situations. What was the ranking in passing? What was it, 5th in the SEC, 33rd in the nation? I don't see them being 5th defensively against the pass in the SEC again this year. You returned, Patrick Surtain was a freshman last year and played amazing in my mind, especially considering the fact that he was a true freshman. He's back as a sophomore. You got Diggs on the other side, so you're good to go at cornerback position. You got McKinney at safety, and this Shyheim Carter, he's going to get a ton of playing time, probably at the other safety position, although there's some talk of maybe him being a nickel back or what y'all call a star position, I think, whatever it is. But in any case, when you look at this defense, the starting lineup at all 3 levels is NFL caliber and absolutely elite. But there are some serious depth issues for Alabama on defense this year. I honestly believe that, especially at defensive line and middle linebacker. I know all your backups are amazing, and I get that. But again, you only have to look back a couple of years. Not much is proven outside of Dylan Moses at the middle linebacker position. And the same thing with your defensive backfield. You got to stay healthy there, I think, if you're going to repeat your undefeated season from last year. All right, let's put the schedule up on the screen just for the heck of it, right? Just because we have to, and we'll go through it. Week 1, you play Duke in a neutral site game. That's a win. People are knocking Alabama for who they schedule in this. I don't really buy that, right? You schedule these games a lot of time years out. Now, and to be fair to some of the critics, Duke never really that good. But Alabama has scheduled, Florida State, and they played at Penn State under Nick Saban. They played Virginia Tech, I think, one year in a neutral site game. I think West Virginia even, maybe. They've got, who is it they've got coming up on the schedule? Is it Southern Cal? Anyway, the point is, people pick on Alabama's schedule. People just like to pick on Alabama. Everybody schedules bad teams every once in a while. Hard to really hate on Alabama for the scheduling in my mind, just to be fair. But you'll beat Duke. Play New Mexico State at home. Hating on you for this too, but you get a win. First SEC game on the road at South Carolina. A lot of coots talking about this game. And, of course, they do have a winning streak over Nick Saban and Alabama. So let's give South Carolina their credit, okay? They want their credit. Yes, South Carolina won the ACC championship in 1969. Yes, you did. Congratulations. The last conference title you won, ACC title. You never won an SEC title. But, yes, you won the ACC in 1969, And yes, you beat Alabama the last time you played them in, what was that, 2010, 2011, something like that. This ain't 2010 or 2011, Jack. That was during the middle of that run South Carolina had where they won 11 games 3 years in a row. They had players like Jadeveon Clowney came through during that time, Marcus Lattimore. Those guys are gone. You don't have those guys anymore. You're not winning this game. Yeah, it's in Columbia. This is going to be just like the Georgia game was last year. Carolina fans talked all offseason last year about how they were going to be able to hang with Georgia in Columbia and possibly even beat them, keep it close, win it at the end, that kind of thing. Georgia came out and ran them out of the building. Same thing's going to happen here with Alabama. You've got absolutely no chance, Carolina. I'm sorry. They're going to humiliate you. Alabama's 3-0. Southern Miss, 4-0. Ole Miss, might as well be Southern Miss. You're 5-0. I'm not a buyer on Ole Miss. Ole Miss and Mississippi State, I think you can forget about them for the foreseeable future. I'm sorry. I just don't think either one of those programs is going to be that good over the next couple of years. Mississippi State in particular, looks like they might have hired the wrong coach. Then you have your bye week. You get 2 bye weeks this year. It's not a change or anything. It's just there's an extra Saturday this year in the way the calendar falls. So every team gets 2 bye weeks. But so you come out of your first bye week and you got to have you go on the road, another SEC game. On the road. To Texas A&M. Okay, I'm sort of half kidding there. Obviously, your season won't be over. I'm going to pick you to lose that game. I've picked Alabama to go 12-0, I think, each of the last 2 seasons. This isn't I hate Alabama thing. You're better than Texas A&M. I would feel you have a bye week before you play them. That works against me in this pick here. I'm going way out on a limb here, but I've done this on a lot of team schedules this year. Texas A&M has a brutal schedule. They play Alabama, they play Georgia, they play Clemson, the 3 best teams. On top of that, they play LSU. I think they're going to beat one, maybe 2 of those teams. I hope it ain't Georgia. So I'm picking it to be you. I know I'm way out on a limb here. I know not a single Alabama fan is going to agree with me here, and I don't blame you. You'll be a favorite in that game. I get that. But weird things happen in college football. Even if you're an Alabama fan, you have to admit that. Weird things do tend to happen from time to time. I'm not trash talking. I'm not going to be surprised if you beat Texas A&M by 3 touchdowns. But it's no fun to pick the favorite every single time. I like to try to find some upsets every once in a while. And like I've said, I haven't found an upset on Alabama scheduled either of the last 2 preseason videos I did for Alabama, picking them to go 12-0 both years. This year, I'm going to have you at 11-1 with that loss on the road at Texas A&M. After that game, you rebound against a nobody called Tennessee. Here you go scheduling these lower classification schools again, but you'll get a win over Tennessee, home win over Arkansas, and then that takes you into your second bye week. Come out of that, home game against LSU. Seemed like if LSU was going to beat you, it would have been last year, don't it? They were kind of hot. You had to play them there. A lot of hype around the game. They couldn't even score. Hell, they could barely get a first down. Beat them 29-0. Now they got to come to you. I can't see them beating you. I do think LSU will be a good team this year, probably the second best team in the West, maybe even going 10-2, something like that. But I don't think they get the win on the road in Tuscaloosa. I have you beating the Corn Dogs. Come back on the road this time at Mississippi State. Sort of spoiled this earlier when I was talking about Ole Miss. Just not a believer in the Mississippi schools right now. Not enough cowbell in this game, even though it's played in Stark Vegas. You get another win. Western Carolina, win. And then you close out the season on the road at Auburn where, listen, leading up to this game, just like leading up to the Auburn-Georgia game a couple weeks before that, Georgia's going to have to hear all about how we went on the road as a highly ranked undefeated team a couple of seasons ago in 2017 and lost at the Barn. You're going to have to hear the same damn thing. And I have a feeling you agree with me on this one, which is that the Barn beating either UGA or Alabama in any given year is nothing short of a minor miracle. It's not happening in any case this year. Georgia will beat them 2 weeks prior to this on the road at the Barn. You will beat them to end the regular season on the road at the Barn. And if Gus isn't already fired by the time this game is played, which is a real possibility in my mind because I don't think things are going to go well for Auburn this year, he will be fired after this game. I don't think Gus Malzahn survives the season. I've mentioned that a bunch of times already. I think Auburn's probably a 7-5 team this year, and I don't think Auburn's willing to put up with that from the Gus bus any longer. So that's it. I've got Alabama at 11-1. I know a lot of people are going to expect Alabama to go 12-0, and that's a reasonable. That would be a reasonable prediction and expectation. Again, you can type in the comments all day long that I'm wrong about Texas A&M and Alabama's going to go 12-0. I don't have, I'm not going to argue with you. It's very possible. It's probably likely. But again, not everything that's likely always happens. I'm going to pick you to 11-1 with a loss at Texas A&M. You'll still win the SEC West and earn yourself a trip into the SEC championship game. So that's it. That's my preview for the Gumps for this year, 2019. I appreciate you guys watching it, and have a great morning.